All right, it's getting colder by the minute, but hey, let's be outside and make a video because you people like videos. So we'll get started on that right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Rusty Oliver Man, and people's constant suggestion of do a video telling where the tractors came from. So I probably do this a little over time as I've worked on them, but for some people who haven't seen all those videos, they may not know the story. So we can go again and just kind of go around. And so I did that the other day, and here's some more. So in this building, we have this little 550, which consequently the build card said was sold new in Canada. And somehow it made its journey here to the United States, to Ohio. And the old guy used it there, I guess. He must have died. His grandson inherited it. He brought it with him to Indiana, and I bought it off of Facebook Marketplace. It was in downtown Indianapolis in a subdivision, and it did not run. It had a bush hog hooked behind it, and it was sitting pretty well like it is now, except it had crappier front tires on it, because I think I've put one on each side by now. At least one. He had somebody help him try to get it fixed, and that guy screwed it up worse than if he'd left it alone. So Dad and I went up there with a trailer, and of course not running, and with a bush hog hooked to it and a loader. What does one do? Well, with the help of the handyman jack and the natural terrain of the land, I was able to get this up on the trailer. I used the handyman jack and raised the loader and then tied it up so that it couldn't come down. I unhooked the bush hog, and I think what I did, I'm trying to remember if the bush hog was on the back of the trailer finally, or if I pulled the bush hog on first. I think I pulled the bush hog on with the winch and pulled it up onto the trailer, and then I let the tractor roll down the hill of this cul-de-sac and got some speed up and ramped it up on the trailer, and then the loader sat over top of the bush hog, and I hauled it all the way home. I think that's the arrangement that I had it in, if I remember. When I got it home, I took it, started messing with it, realized that it had a couple stuck valves. It was way out of time. That guy had messed with it, and that was screwed up. And when I got all that freed up, I had it running. I think the same day I had it running. And it's been a little good one ever since. I mean, I've done a few things to it here and there. It really needs more cosmetic attention. It needs some new hydraulic hoses here. I put one on it or so whenever we went. I guess I put a couple of them on it. I took it to town one time to my aunt and uncle's and pulled shrubs and stuff with it, but it just is a handy little tractor. I use it all the time, and I really like it. So much so that Dad even likes it too. He would like to find one set up similarly, because he used it one time. He always used that little Ford I got, and it was apart, and you know, from that steering thing, and so I had let him use this, and he said, is that going to do whatever we're doing? I said, yeah. I said, it's like twice the tractor, that Ford. And when he brought it back, he said, yeah. He said, that's a lot better. So anyway, it's a nice little tractor, factory Oliver loader. I want to say it's a 59A loader. Can you read the tag? I can't hardly read it from here, but I think that sounds right. 59A maybe. But cute little tractor. Interesting that it was sold new in Canada, and now it's here. 1650 diesel. This was a tractor that was sold new here at our dealer, and in fact it did have a loader with it on the original farm, but it was not this loader. Somewhere along the line the tractor and loader got separated, and I ended up finding another loader just like it to put back on it. I've got pictures of this. When I got it, it had a Schwartz wide front end on it, which was just garbage. That was, a matter of fact, why the tractor got parked. The old guy had had the engine overhauled, if I understand right, because the guy I talked to was the son, and the dad was the one who bought it new. The tractor had lived a kind of a hard life. It had had saddle tanks on it and different things, and that Schwartz wide front end just couldn't handle it, and it was breaking all the time, and they kept welding it. Well, the guy had just had the engine overhauled, and the son's bush hogging with it, and he accidentally hit a light pole somehow, and he broke like the tube that the spindle's on. So he pulled it out behind the barn and left it sit. Well, I guess he left it sit too long, or over winter, and the exhaust stack was uncovered, and when they went to pull her next spring, it wouldn't start. Pulled the dipstick, and out comes water. It had totally ruined the motor. Water had got in, it was locked up. It was a mess, and I've got pictures of it. It was a disaster, and it sat there along the road, I guess, for years, and I didn't know that it was out there, but somebody bought it from him finally, and that guy must have given up on it and realized it was pretty rough. He sold it to another guy, and they gave up on it and thought it was pretty rough, and then it went to a third guy, and that's the guy I bought it from, and that all happened in a month's time or so. So anyway, I wanted to make a loader tractor, so I bought that one and built it to what I want. I found a factory wide front end, I found this 1610 loader, and there it sits. It's got a brand new engine in it, basically. I mean, it's got very few hours on it from me doing that. Just loader work is all it's done, really. I planted corn with it one year just to give it something to do. I ground a load of feed with it once to kind of break it in, and then it just sits. But it's another one that gets used all the time because, hey, loader tractor, handy. But it was in fact a sold new locally here tractor, and it still needs stuff done to it. It's got a lot of leaks on it that need fixed. The hydropower needs rebuilt. We need to reseal it. I think the sprag clutch, unless the little keeper things are wore too far, the sprag clutch might go again, but it loses prime, and then it shifts down to underdrive, and then after a while it'll build up prime and go again. And so, yeah, we're gonna have to tackle it pretty soon. Brakes are gonna need attention. When Grandpa liked to use it, he decided that driving with the brakes on was a cool thing to do a lot of times, and they're pretty bad. And I just gave up on trying to keep it because that would happen quite frequently. So I've just learned to use it without brakes, but now one of these days we'll tackle that just like we did on that other one. Back here, the beautiful 1755. This is probably one of my favorite tractors that I've ever bought because it turned out to be such a beautiful original when I polished on it. Of course, it's dirty right now, but it shined up very nicely. And then I had these fenders off of that 1955 I have that the patina kind of matches, because that tractor had a year-round cab on it where the fenders would stay on with the cab, and the cab kind of protected the finish of the fenders in a lot of ways. So, but anyway, this came just before I started YouTube. It was like I bought this in May and I started doing YouTube in June. So it was one of the first things on the channel. But I saw it on an auction down south, and it was non-running, and Dad had a hay mower down there he wanted to buy, a new Idea 5209. So we both ended up winning, and my brother-in-law hauled them down on the trailer together. It had a year-round cab on it. No, it was not a year-round cab. It was an all-season cab, I think is what it was. There's videos at the very beginning of my YouTube that show that. That cab ended up getting sold, and a guy came from Texas and bought it and took that, a viewer who saw it on the channel, and he bought that cab and took it to Texas. It is just very nice original tractor. I repainted all the white pieces, but other than that, the green is just the way that it was. I just really haven't done much to it. When I got it, to get it to run again, I had to have the injection pump rebuilt because it was very stuck. I couldn't get anything out of it at all. And then when I got that done, tried to start it, and I still could not get it to start. It just wasn't turning and fast enough is what it ended up to be. We even tried to pull it, but unfortunately it had sat so long that the hydraulic shift had lost enough prime that it wouldn't hold it to pull it. And so I ended up finally, I had a high torque starter on that 1855, and I put it on here and it fired right up. So then I ordered another one for the other tractor, and that made all the difference in the world in how it started. I am a firm believer in these. They're like 225 bucks. And yeah, they don't look original, but boy, do they make it start great. Every one of these diesels I have has one of those starters on it, and I'm a fan. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to start getting some for gas tractors too, because they just work so good. But I don't know, it's just been it's a very nice tractor. This is even original, which how often does that happen, you know? I was thinking that it had a crack in it and I glued it together, but maybe I'm thinking of something else. This might be, I don't remember. I was thinking that was original. Maybe that's a reproduction and I took the original off because it has a split in it, but I don't remember now. But it still had the original seat cushion on it, you know. It's getting to where it's probably going to have to be swapped, but it's just such a nice original. The only thing that's not, that potentially I will change at some point, is it's had the steering column replaced with something out of like a forklift or something. It doesn't have the telescope feature anymore, and it's also, the motor in there I think is not quite right because it's too responsive. It turns the wrong amount of times. When you turn it, it's too quick. A little bit of turn on the steering wheel is a bunch on the wheels, so you got to be aware of that when you're driving it. But anyway, it had the original top link in the cab. I remember, I can't remember if this might be a reproduction shield. I can't remember. I think it is, now that I think about it. But yeah, I mean, it's been a nice one, and we're finally getting it where we can do stuff with it. Since I got the PTO figured out, that was the last thing that was keeping me from doing any serious work with it, because I had messed with the valve and I couldn't get anything out of it. It was still acting goofy. So finally I took the PTO valve off that 1955 and put it on, and it works great. So obviously that valve that was on here had some serious internal problem that you couldn't really see, because I had it all apart and I could not figure out what to do. And I even had another valve and tried to make 1 out of 2 and get it, and it still was not right. So we got her dialed in now, and we'll probably be seeing more. It will probably need rebuilt in the future, overhauled. It's got a lot of blow by, but we're going to ride this pony as long as it'll keep going, because I'm not in the habit of tearing apart something running and usable when I got others that don't. So, but anyway, it came from an auction, and I think at the time, I think I gave $4,500 for it. And I thought, boy, I overpaid, and it was just, I was kind of kicking myself. I thought, that's too much. Just doesn't even run, and you know, and seeing it now, I'm glad that I did, because that's one of the nicest ones you'll see. And I think if I put it on an auction, I could probably double my money. So anyway, that's where it came from. The 880 here, which we've seen in a few videos this fall, messing around with it. I have done almost nothing with it. I have done no work with it because it's a relatively new arrival in the grand scheme of things. This one came from Ohio, from viewer Craig. He and I traded. I had a 1650 gas with a wide front end and a creeper drive transmission that had some issues. He reached out and said he was wanting more 4-digit tractors, and I said I like that 880, so we ended up making a deal, and he brought it out here. We swapped, and you know, it runs. I got it running good. He had trouble getting it running good, and we tackled that in some videos. The carburetor that was on it was a total piece of garbage, and that is so sad, because he paid big money for that carburetor from a reputable place, and it was still garbage. It just was never. I even spent $100 on it myself trying to rebuild it, and it just would not work right. And then it had trash in the tank and stuff, and I got that pretty well lined out, but it's still, I think it still needs some attention, because here lately I've had to run with the choke pretty well out, so I'm guessing more stuff has settled down into the bottom, and we're gonna have to deal with that. But it's got the power traction hitch, and what I liked about this tractor when I saw the pictures of it were, it's almost a perfect twin to my 770, so I've got both sizes, and they're twins. My 770 has 2 weights on the front like that. This one does. Those factory weights are different than the later tractors. They're kind of hard to come by, and so I just thought it was neat. It's set up the same way as the 770. Weights, power booster, and the power traction hitch. So anyway, we'll get to messing with it again. The starter's off because I took it off and put it on the 770 to get it put in the shed. We swapped that carburetor off of the 1600. And so this one's on its way to becoming something. It's just more projects, and I have not that much time. But this was a trade from Ohio. That's where it came from. This one, Super 88, was a auction time buy. Local equipment jockey. I buy a lot of stuff from there. You've seen me go there many times. But it was on Christmas Eve. It was on an auction with several Oliver tractors. The old guy had died, and it was obvious that this tractor was very well taken care of. Just things on it show me that. It would probably almost be a good candidate as an original paint tractor, but not really. This obviously has had something done to it. The nose, it's not very good. This side is pretty bad, rusty sheet metal. This side, you could probably shine up and see stuff. I'm becoming more on the fence of just giving it a total paint job. You know, I've painted things as I've had to, like front rims. They were painted, one was white and one was a mess. And then the grill was not the right color. Somebody repainted it with yellow paint, but it wasn't very good. So I touched that up and then had to fix this and painted it. And just little things along the way where I feel like it probably just needs totally and restored. But it's a very good runner and a pretty nice solid tractor where I don't know that it had a ton of well, I can't say that either. The guy took care of it, whoever had it. I have no idea how many hours are on it, but it appears that he probably had a loader on it at one time from the marks on the frame, so it probably was his loader tractor. But I bush hogged with it many hours with my pull-type bush hog that's right there that we need to get back to fixing. And yeah, it's another one that I was kind of questioning myself. I think I gave $2,500 for it. And then I thought, should I have done that? I mean, I had enough pieces around here to build a Super 88. I had an engine and I had a whole running gear and transmission and stuff. And then I saw this come for sale and I thought, you know, if I put that other one together, I'm going to spend way more than that. And this one I was able to get on and drive on the trailer. So I think I did okay, especially now that I've had a chance to use it for several years and pretty well got my money's worth out of it, I think. And you know, there's things we can do to it in the future too. But until it messes up, I really don't want to mess with it. I guess it does have an hour meter, but I don't think I can read it. I think we went down that path before, but whatever. It's still operating on all the original ignition stuff that was on it when I brought it home. So, you know, the worst thing I had to do to it was a radiator. This is the one where the radiator blew up that one year. It was on YouTube. And found a different one and then couldn't find the radiator cap that fit it because it's a pressurized radiator and the company didn't sell the cap that fit it. And then I figured out that the radiator cap that fits an international truck fits it. And I guess probably the H's and M's. But if you have one of these style radiators and you can't figure that out, the company doesn't know the answer, but I do. It's the same as an IH radiator cap. So anyway, that's a good tractor. And like I said, $2,500 maybe from auction time. This, my 77, was I guess technically the second tractor that I owned. I wanted a 77 ever since I was little, just because of the fact that Great Grandpa had one, and Grandpa and them used it to pick corn with. And yeah, I can't get a very good view of it right now. But as a kid, I wanted one, and we tried and tried and never could find one that was reasonably priced. Every time we went to auctions and drove different places, and they always brought what was a lot of money at the time. I don't even know what it would be now, but they couldn't afford to get it. So we would pass on one after the other, and that was that. And then when I was probably in the 7th grade maybe or so, that was when Great Grandpa got sick, and he gave me that little Ford. And so I had the little Ford to play with, but I still wanted this. And Dad was the postmaster in a little town, and he was eating lunch at the tavern and said something about wanting one of these. And some guy piped up and said, "I've got one and I'd sell it." So we went out and looked at it, and it was rough. It didn't have any side curtains on. The grills were out of it. It didn't run, supposedly. And the manifold was bad, was the reason, I believe. And then the guy said, boy, it had just been overhauled and it ran so beautiful. And anyway, I think it was $400 I gave for it. I used the amount of money that I got from the 4-H auction that year and bought this tractor. And I mean, we rolled it off the trailer and people were laughing. They thought it was garbage, but I got it to run. The only thing we did is we found it. Dad found a used manifold somewhere, and I put that on. And then I think I just went through and readjusted the valves and different things, and I got it fired up and ran it and used it. I took it along when we did hay away at places, and I raked hay while they did baling and stuff. And I don't know, I used the heck out of it. It was my little tractor. When I went away to college, it kind of sat, and then it never did want to run right again. And I fought that for a while, but I finally got it lined out where it's the way it should be, and use it, all the time pretty well, just here and there. When I got it, of course, I was a kid, so funds were limited. The rims were shot, and one back rim, we took the tire off and made a patch, and actually it was like third world country patching. Didn't have a MIG welder at the time, so pop riveted a piece of metal over it and then covered it with Bondo, put the tire back on and ran it. And then the other side was not savable, so I got one new rim, and that's how I ran it for years. And it always bothered me because the new rim was wider than the old rim, so I had one wide and one narrow. Well, then, several years ago, it just so happened that a guy that I do work for, he had a 77, and his rim went bad on his tractor, and it was the wider version. And he was saying, what can we do? And I said, well, how about this? How about I take a rim off my tractor and sell it to you, and I'll just buy a matching pair for mine. And that's what I did. So I bought a pair of rims for this one, took that one off. I think that's even in a video way back when, at the very, very beginning of the channel. That might have been in a video there when I did that. But I put the pair of rims on this one, and then I don't remember if that's when I bought one new tire first and then bought the second one later. And I don't remember how that played out with the new rims, if it was that I put my two old tires on the two new rims, or whether I already had one new tire and then I bought the mate when I put the rims on. I can't remember, but I really like these tires. Galaxy Earth Pro R1s, and they have, it seems like, twice as many bars, and they are the smoothest running tires down the road. I really like them. I took this one on that tractor drive. That was in a video, and it was just wonderful. I mean, it was a breeze. It's getting to where it doesn't really need much of anything except repainted. My little middle school paint job is giving out pretty bad, you know. I'm sure this is that Van Sickle paint that was on here, and that turns out that paint has really bad sun fade and not very good adhesion over time. I mean, I tried. I even like put primer on it, but it apparently, whatever. I've learned stuff since then, and that's just the way it is. The side curtains have come off, I think, of 4 different tractors. The back 2 might have come off the same one, parts tractor, but one curtain is really nice, and the other curtain is off of that parts tractor, and it has a little bit of brazing on it, but I don't know. It's just, this is one of the ones I always liked, and like I said, $400 initially, and then whatever it was, you know, over time, it just, whatever it needed. This one does have the, as a kid when I was working on it, I saw those yellow face gauges advertised in the Oliver Collector magazine, and so that's what I wanted for Christmas, and I said something, you know, whatever, and my mom bought them for me, so I got that set of gauges for Christmas. And yeah, it's a shame because they're getting kind of, the plastic is getting where you can't really see. It's like cloudy, and I hate that because I really don't want to replace those gauges. That's one of those memory things, you know, and just keep them on there. But anyway, that one's been here a long time, and I use it all the time. Now, I'm telling you, friends, the temperature's dropping rapidly, and it's like 18 degrees now, so we're not going to do much more than I'll finish this building that we're in, and then we'll continue on another time, because, yeah, I'm not enjoying the cold. 88, you've seen in many videos, most recently pulling the Minneapolis Molding Combine. This one came after the 77. I traded the Part 77 to a neighbor because it ended up that Part 77 was his dad's tractor, which I did not know until after I had already robbed it for stuff. So he had this with, I think the head was off of it, and it was missing all the push rods out of the engine, and it was, I just don't remember what else. I think it might have had all of the sheet metal on it, but, or maybe I got the side panels later, I don't remember. But anyway, it was supposedly a local tractor, but it just had a lot of issues. And then several years ago, what it would do was you would put a new head gasket on, and you'd run it a while, and then like 6 months later, water would be in the oil again. It had engine problems, is what I'm saying. I don't know how severe it was, but the tractor sat in the shed, and then finally I decided, you know what? I got a better idea. I found a running engine that was being sold on an auction, and I swapped that out and put it in, and it's been great ever since. And it's another one where it needs repainted because my middle school paint job is not great. But it's had new tires put on it. I don't know if that was on YouTube. Might have been. Maybe it was before that. These are actually the rims and wheel centers that came on the Super 77. I told that story in the last video. I had bought those other tires for this tractor, and when I put them on, they were so skinny it looked goofy. So then when I got that Super 77, I put its rims and tires on this one, and the others on the other. Then when I got this running good, those tires were junk, so I bought these. Alliance, or are these Alliance Farm Pros? Yeah. They're a little bit different pattern, but 45-degree lugs, and I haven't really had any trouble with the Chinesium tires. They seem to be every bit as good as anything. Of course, these tractors aren't being used for plowing much anymore or anything, so it is what it is. But it did not have, the guy before me had robbed the hydraulic unit off of it and just set a mechanical lift on it, which if you don't know how that's made, it's totally useless, because if you have the short input shaft for the hydraulic pump, then you can't use the mechanical lift unless you swap shafts. So instead of that, I put hydraulics back on it and found an early style unit that would have had it had little nubs, and that wasn't panning out very good. This is actually supposed to run off of the electric switches on the column, and I'd really like to get that hooked up again so I could run them with switches instead of this, but it's got the manual bypass levers. However, what my setup was not really made for these, so I made a little stub shaft that fit in there, and I don't remember if I welded them to it or what, that my little shaft to the one that was there, or how I did it, but it works. So anyway, it's another one that it's been here a while. I think did I rebuild the seat on it yet or not? I don't remember. It looks like there's new roll pins up here, but I don't know. Maybe I did a partial rebuild, but yeah, what to say about it. It was another one that was traded, so I think we gave $100 for the parts tractor, and then I traded it for this, so not a bad deal. 770 is the first tractor I bought after the world shut down. I saw it advertised on an auction, and this auction was going to finally be an in-person auction, and I thought, I'm going to buy that tractor because I'm tired of sitting at home. So I went and bought it. It had been sitting in the shed, and the guy had it blocked up because both back rims were garbage and the tires were junk. The auctioneer pulled it across the road to where the sale was happening, so it was sitting there on flat tires, and they couldn't get it running. It would turn over, but they couldn't get it to fire. They'd burn up the points. So I ended up giving, I think, $800 for it, and that was dandy. I got it, and later they had the power traction hitch plow on that same sale, the 5440 plow. So it came here, and it was another one I had running that afternoon, I think, and it ran great. So the worst expense on this one was buying new rims. Actually, I should have bought a pair, and I didn't. I bought one new rim, and then I took that one and cut it up and fixed this one. But I should have just bought two new ones so that they were both nice. But trying to save a little money and be thrifty, I bought the tires off the electronic bay because they came as a set with 2 tires and 2 tubes, and it was cheaper than what I could get around here. These are Crop Max tires, which I like because they are basically this Firestone Field and Road molds, and I always liked those tires. That's what we had around here. So yeah, power traction hitch. It's just another tractor. I don't know what to say. It's been a good one. I think they overhauled the motor on it because it runs great. So another good buy. 1800A checkerboard because of this fancy little decal. People don't always understand that, but you have to remember this was in the era before White Motor owned Cockshut. So those name spears that you're used to seeing only showed up after Oliver and Cockshut were together, because that was a Cockshut thing. So that's how that ended up to be. This tractor came from a good friend in town. I didn't know him at the time. This is how I met him, was through this tractor. I saw this tractor advertised in the Farm World paper, and it was only a couple $1,000 or $2,500. And at the time I thought I had just got the 1855 and was doing things with it, and then I thought I really need another tractor that's bigger like that in case that one would quit, that I wouldn't be dead in the water. So I bought this, and Grandpa ended up using it a lot. I hooked it to the disc, and he would disc with it and stuff. And it was actually, I saw when I was watching those videos of the museum doing presentations on history and stuff, they used that picture that I took of Grandpa on this tractor in their presentation. But anyway, like I said, I think I gave $2,500, $2,200 for it. It had almost brand new back tires on it, and I mean, they're foreign as well, but I've gotten pretty good use out of them, I think. They're Titans. But yeah, it's been here. I have put a head gasket on it once. It's got that aluminum carburetor like they all had of this size tractor, and that's been kind of finicky sometimes, but basically it's been good. I cut hay with it all the time. I ran the auger with it. I like this tractor. It's kind of nice to drive. It's the first one of this body style, that they use. So there's a lot of things that are different than the later ones. The hydraulic unit's way different with the valve here, the filters over there, so they swapped that around so that you weren't sending dirty oil out into the system. The top cover's different. It doesn't have the drillings for the power beyond on the cover, I don't believe, so it's a little different, and just different style stuff. The pump is different in it, I think, and so whenever that quits, it's going to be a sad day to try to figure out what to do there. But yeah, it's another one that it was probably a very decent-ish original, and I should have probably pursued it that way and worked on it and polished on it and see if I could brought it around, but I primered part of it and tried to preserve it, and I should have done it differently maybe, but it just needs a total paint job now. The tops of the fenders are kind of bad on that one over there, almost like something fell on it, like fertilizer or something, but it's a pretty good running tractor. I bought a new dash piece last year for it. That's almost impossible to find for the A series because it's totally different, and the one I got is perfect, but of course you got to take everything out and the steering wheel off to do that. So that'll be a project for a video because that'll be kind of an in-depth thing, but good tractor for $2,500 when it's got brand new tires, and it was pretty complete, just a few little piddly things that were not on it correctly, and I was able to fix that, no problem, find them. 1650, this is one we always had. Grandpa bought it. He wanted a 4-bottom plow tractor that would fit in the corn picker that him and his dad bought together. They had a 1650 diesel. Grandpa couldn't stand the diesel fumes, so he ended up telling the salesman that he wanted one of these, and about the next day he came driving in with this and a plow. He traded somebody something else and got this one, and it supposedly lived its life not too many miles from here, but it has lived here more than it ever lived over there. So it's one of those deals where if they came back one day and said, we'd like to buy Dad's tractor back, I would tell them to go pound sand, because it's lived here more of its life than it lived over there, and that's just the way it's going to be. But it's one of those that what hasn't been done to it, everything's been done to it over time. Whatever it needed, it got at different times. The hydropower definitely needs to be rebuilt on it because it hasn't worked right for years. The mechanics in town couldn't figure it out finally when I was a kid, and then I don't know what they did. They just more or less locked the lever so it doesn't move, and then I don't know. But that's something we need to address. We did that whole back end and made it real nice, and then we found those bearing pieces in the oil when we drained it. So now we'll probably be taking the hydraulic unit off in order to get into the transmission and see that everything's okay. But based on the pieces I found, I pretty well determined it's that idler gear that runs the pump here, which is a bolt-in piece, and I think it's the needle bearing pieces out of that idler. So that can't go anywhere. It's not like it's gonna drop in and jam because it can't physically come off that shaft, but you got to take the whole thing off and flip it over to get to that. I got another one so I can just bolt that in and go again. But that's such is life, friends. You know, we spent all that time making this stuff nice, and then sadness happened somewhere else right after. So, and I do want to get the hydroelectric working on this. That was another thing that I'm wanting to pursue. I think it would be fun to have one that worked and I could play with, and so yeah. So it's just sleeping in here now. It also doesn't have a very good paint job on it. This has probably had like 4 or 5 paint jobs on it in its life, because it was also in the corn picker, and it also would catch fire, and the dealer repainted it several times, and then finally it was getting so bad I was afraid it was going to get rusty, and Grandpa didn't want to spend money on that, so I just bought a cheap gallon can of paint and sprayed it with some paint to keep it nice, but it's not the right color, and so that's sad, but it is what it is, you know. Anyway, that's never leaving here either, and I don't know what he paid for it. I've got the receipt in the house. I'm sure it wasn't much at the time, you know. Finally, probably would be easier to just go out of here to see it. We have tucked away in here a 1550. And this one, actually I got it from the same guy as the 1800A, although it's a lot of years later. He, oh, you bovines are messing with that stuff? Okay. He took it, he bought a couple, 2 or 3 tractors from a farm, and he would kind of tinker with stuff and get it running again, but he was getting to where he was pretty well over it. But he wanted to buy those tractors because one of them was a Massey Ferguson that his dad had bought new, and so he wanted to get that back. He has since sold it to a collector because he had to downsize and move into a different place. But so he focused a lot of his energy on that Massey Ferguson. This was sitting there waiting in the wings, and he also had a little Ford, like a 1710 Ford loader tractor and front wheel assist, and it needed some work on the front axle. So I did the work on that and traded labor and stuff for this. You know, I think I gave him $200 difference, and he actually delivered it. He brought it. He had a little thing where he could take the front wheels off and set it in the dolly of the thing, and he pulled it with another tractor out here and set it off in the yard, and I got it running. I don't remember, it might have been, he might have got it running, but it had a terrible miss in it. That might have been what it was. Or maybe he didn't get it running at all. I don't remember. But at any rate, when it did first start running, it had a miss in it, and it couldn't get it. And I thought, well, it's got a push rod problem or something, because it sat for a long time. Somebody tried to start it. So I pulled the valve cover off. No push rods bent, but it was full of gunk and stuff, so it wasn't wasted effort. So I cleaned that out, got to looking, started pulling spark plugs out one at a time. They were brand new plugs, and I found out that on the one on the back on these size tractors, the 1550, that blow-by tube goes right in front of the spark plug, and whoever put that plug in accidentally smashed the end of the plug tight to the electrode as they were putting it in, so the back one wasn't sparking. So when I re-gapped the plug and put it in, and it ran beautiful. So yeah, it's another one that I've used a bunch to do mowing and stuff. It still needs attention. It needs, the steering box needs rebuilt because it makes a terrible mess. We'll get to that at some point. We did in the video, we did the back rims and tires on this, and it's just a little at a time. Axle seals we did. So there's a lot we can make better on it, and we just need to get time to do that thing. Let's throw in one more before I freeze to death. It's sitting out here in shame. 60 on steel. It's been totally on YouTube because I got it, and we did all kinds of things to it, and it's just been sitting. I've never had any time to do anything with it. I don't know, it runs and drives and all that. I need lugs. I need some more lugs, and I've tried everywhere, and I guess what I'm gonna have to do is buy another set of steel wheels and then just part one set out, because people say they got them and then they never come through for me. They're narrower than the lugs on a 70, and the hole spacing is different, so you can't even use the ones off a 70 and cut them off, and I really don't want to drill holes through this. So that's where she sits, you know. It's usable and it's fine. You could drive it on dirt all day long, but if you drive across the driveway or a hard surface, it'll knock your teeth out. So yeah, it's another one that should probably find a place in the shed, because this ain't doing it no favors. But it's been in videos, and we need to get back to this at some point, but hopefully we'll get the projects wrapped up for other people, and then we can work on some of our own. I do have more of other people's stuff coming, but I gotta do some of that. I gotta have some income to fix these things. So that's a project for another day, but it's getting colder by the minute, and I think we probably got it close to an hour of footage, so we'll probably call it here, because I'm sure that will whittle down to a decent sized video. So anyway, until next time, I guess we'll leave this one here. That got you some of the backstories, some more of these. If you've heard them already, I guess sorry, but if you haven't, now you know. So we're gonna go ahead and leave this one here, and we'll see you in the next one.